So Glenn, looking back at USC, the first half success, second half not as much success. What did you kind of see that worked so well for you, and then why weren't you maybe able to sustain that?
Yeah, I was pleased. Obviously, like I say, the first half, the start fast mentality. That's something we had been talking about. A couple of games previous, we hadn't necessarily started as fast, particularly with the points. We've been able to move the ball a little bit, but not able to generate as many points early in the game. So that was encouraging. We were able to create a little bit of confidence, a little bit of momentum early, which was positive. We had a little low in the third quarter, but pleased with how they responded in the fourth quarter and was able to move the ball again. So I think there's a lot to pull from that. I think there's some confidence there, and look to obviously build on it.
The physicality was very noticeable from the outset. Your O-line was running guys downfield, and also the quick game. You guys were getting the ball really quickly to a lot of your playmakers. So how did it feel just kind of having all that sort of come together?
Yeah, that was good to see. I mean, and part of that is sustained drives. A lot of times you can't see that when you are 3 and out or you have limited numbers as far as plays in the series. So it was good to convert on some third downs so you could actually see that. We created a rhythm. We were able to get some plays on the game plan called and, had some success with that. So that was good to see, which is more incentive to convert on those third downs. Our third down percentage was better, obviously, this week, so we were able to get some plays ran.
Hi, Glenn. Hunter Rubino, Devil's Digest. When it comes to the play of Ben Scott, I thought he was one of the bright spots, especially some of the plays that he was actually pulling. Can you just talk about his development from week 1 until now? What have you seen from him anchoring the front five?
I totally agree. That was probably Ben's best game. I think he's growing into that new position. Obviously being center, there's a lot on that plate just from a mental perspective, not only the physical. So I think he's in a great place. He's really taking control as far as a leadership role, and we're really challenging him to take it to the next level.
Michelle Gardner, Arizona Republic. Coach, I wanted to ask about the offensive line. First half, they did a great job. There were no sacks. Second half, 5 sacks, and from then you were playing behind the chains. So are you a little bit concerned with the amount of sacks that the offensive line has given up, especially in the second half?
Yeah, that was not necessarily at the time of the game. The week before, it was actually in the first half we had some protection issues. So I wouldn't say necessarily the point of the game. I mean, the pass protection in general is a point of emphasis. From a game planning perspective, we've definitely tried to explore all avenues in protection, whether it be, max protection, 5-man protection, whatever the case may be. So I thought those guys did a nice job, from their end. The USC crew, they're obviously athletic. They brought a lot of exotic looks with twists and blitzes and so forth. So that presented some problems in itself. So it is a point of emphasis. We've talked about it. But I wouldn't say it's just on the O-line. I mean, there's part of the running backs are part of that, the tight ends were part of that, the quarterback's part of that. So it's a collective effort for sure.
I asked Emery the same question. Not only was it the first loss for Washington last week, but it looks like the defensive play was really out of character. Is it kind of a tricky proposition, if you will, preparing for this game when you watch the game film preceding the UCLA game and then you watch the UCLA game, trying to figure out, what is the true state of the Washington defense and how you scheme for it?
Yeah, I think you look at it in totality, though. I think you look at it with what they've put on film up to this point. I don't think you put some onus on that on the last game, obviously, but I think you look at it in totality to figure out kind of schematically what they are, from a personnel standpoint, who they are. So I think that's been the approach. I think they bring a lot of challenges to the table. So we definitely have to step up and play a good game for sure.
What does it mean to the offense when you can have X and Daniel in the backfield at the same time?
Yeah, that's been a nice 1-2 punch for sure. And again, like we talked about with the third downs and the continued drives and sustaining drives, to have those fresh legs be able to come in there, I think is a nice luxury to have. And I've been really impressed with that dynamic, just the social dynamic that they bring and how they're supportive and pushing each other to be better. So really pleased with that and proud of those guys and the success they're having.
Glenn, how about it seemed like Brian Thompson is kind of, coming out of his shell. He's really become more a part of the offense. What do you see in him and his development?
The consistency piece is what's been fun to see for me, because he's one of those guys every day at practice. He is, what's the all gas, no brakes, man. He's going, So which sometimes we have to temper that, even in practice. Like he's going, full speed all the time. So that's translating to the field now. You guys are seeing that on the field, which is good. Obviously that breeds confidence not only from him personally, but within the offense and how we can utilize him. So really, again, proud of him and what he's been able to do.
That says a lot about him, doesn't it? When, because he hasn't had a lot of balls come his way in the first year and a half he's been here, and yet for him to continue working like that says something about him.
That's right. That's right. And we talk about it. I think he's a great example of process. What Coach Iguano's talking about with process and the continued work, the consistency day in, day out. I think he's a great reflection of that he's been that guy since I've been here. So I've been really I have a lot of respect for him and what he brings to the table on a day-to-day basis. So I continue to foresee him with continued success for sure.
I wanted to ask about Daniel. Obviously, whenever he gets touches, it seems like he does something good, whether it's out of the backfield or on kick return. So is it kind of hard to give him enough touches out of the backfield when you've also got a guy like X?
It is. But it's a good problem to have. That's one thing even coming from last season and the production he had last season in minimal carries or touches that we knew and hoped that was going to be the case. So, that it is a tricky, equation to try to figure out. But, I think he's engaged. He's definitely ready to take that challenge when presented. So it is a fine line, and it's a good problem to have.
Well, we talked to him yesterday, and unlike a lot of the other guys who seemed optimistic and tried to keep a chipper mentality, he was angry. Like, is that just part of his personality? Like, he was angry and noticeably bummed about losing.
Right, and I appreciate that. He's a competitor, right? And X is kind of the same way. I mean, both those guys in that room are competitors. They want to be out there. They want to contribute. They want to be a part of the success. So I appreciate that and respect that. So, and I think that's partly why those guys are so successful.
Glenn, what kind of jumps out at you about Washington's defensive approach or personnel?
Well, they're big athletic guys. I mean, particularly up front, they have some big old guys up front that really anchor in there, really support the run game, do a good job that way. So, we particularly talking about the offensive line, they have their hands full with some big guys up front. They'll change some personnel groupings a little bit here and there. They got a couple of linebackers that are pretty athletic, that can run, that match up with the backs pretty good. So, I think they bring a lot of problems to the table, and we're gonna have to play well.
When you're preparing for a new coaching staff out of school and they're 4 games in or whatever, do you go back and look even earlier to stuff that they did at Fresno? Or
Yeah, I think you can. We have, even through the spring, up to probably first half of the season or something we tried to research it as much as we could through the spring. So you try to pull out all avenues that you can, what people have done against them, personnel formation, scheme, every little bit that you can find, you'll try to take advantage of that.
When you string together a couple consecutive scoring drives like you did on Saturday, what does it sound like over the headset? Is it exciting? Is there a pressure to sustain that throughout the game?
No, I definitely wouldn't say it's a pressure. I think there is a confidence. There's an excitement. There is momentum. So I think all that was happening. But also it's the consistency. We talk about offensively. What's next? Whether good, whether bad. We talk about what's next, playing in the moment. The last drive has no bearing on the next drive. All those cliches, but they're so true. So what's next? What do we got to do on the next drive to get the same result?
And then, Coach, to kind of piggyback off that, when you look at Washington, I know defense, we said big up front and they anchor in, but they seem very aggressive too. I know against Stanford, they had 8 sacks in that game. You see, obviously without giving away the game plan, but just things that you can take advantage of that aggressiveness?
Yeah, I don't know about necessarily take advantage of, but there's definitely some personnel. They have really good personnel up front. They have 2 defensive ends that are really big, stout, athletic, long. That brings some problems not only in the pass game but the run game. So we've tried to explore, as in the pass protection and run game, how can we minimize that effect and create some production.